What's going on out there, everybody? Ooh, we're rusty, man. We're rusty. It's been a minute. Welcome back to the Alamo Audible podcast. It's episode 274. Adrian is back from being a Florida man on his long vacation. And we're back on the grind, back on the pod. A lot of change, a lot to talk about. But Adrian, I consider this to be our first podcast episode of the 2025 season. Fall camp has begun. We're here to start the preview content.
Indeed it is. Summer flew by in the blink of an eye. Position previews are starting to fly out, and now it's time to look at the schedule for the Roadrunners in 2025. It's time to look at these single digits that have been announced. The fall camp is fully underway. I mean, things are moving and shaking out here. Jeff Traylor is giving his press conferences on the daily. We're getting that good old Jeff Traylor talk on a daily basis in the post-practice interviews and the media days. So it does feel like football is here and in the swing of things. And Jared, I mean, in 2 weeks and some change, we have the first game of the season in August. So
yeah, it's wild.
It's flying by. It's going to be here before we even know it. And so, yeah, dude. First official pod. We're back on the regular feed. We're back in the swing of things. Yeah, maybe a little bit of jitters to shake out, but we'll be back.
Call me out now. Okay.
We'll be back in full stride. No, I'm giving a disclaimer for my jitters that are going to be coming. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so indeed,
before we get into it, we do have like some business to address. This is our first time on the main feed since we have joined forces with BirdsUp.com. Javi Cardenas and his squad have joined. Unfortunately, Rivals made the decision to discontinue their coverage of UTSA, their relationship with BirdsUp.com. So we were like super happy and proud to offer them a home and have them, shack up with us, if you will. And it's been great to see the communities combined, and so many of his subscribers that weren't already subscribed to us have made the jump over. And hopefully they're enjoying the Patreon chat, which has been super lively, especially as fall camp has begun. And we've had Javi on quite a few bonus episodes already. You'll definitely see him on the main feed from time to time. He's going to be on here often, which I know people are excited about. We got him a podcasting mic. We got him a fancy webcam. So, he's ready to roll. He's good to go. So just really, really exciting time for us here at Alamo Audible. And it's the first time, there's no athletics events in July at all, right? No soccer, no football, baseball, nothing, right? And we had so much content releasing on the site during July that we had to make a content calendar, which we usually have to do that in football season. So we're not double posting on the same day and all that. But had to do that in July. It was pretty awesome. So it's just great to see, how much content we're able to put out with all the folks we have contributing. So hope people are enjoying that.
It's incredible, man. Big welcome to the entire BirdsUp team. They've got their own tab on alamoaudible.com. If you click on the recruiting tab, that is your source for everything BirdsUp, the number one recruiting source for UTSA football. And we do thank Javi and the whole BirdsUp team who has come over with him for helping Alamo Audible become an even bigger and stronger production. We're super excited about it. We're stoked about it. You can expect to start to hear Javi maybe even on a couple of regular feed episodes in addition to the Patreon episodes. And if you really are just jonesing for more recruiting content, and it's all available to you. All you got to do is sign up and subscribe to the booster tier on Patreon, and you have got all of your recruiting access right there from Javi and his squad, man. And so it's been tremendous coverage, and we're just at the very beginning of this thing. We're in the honeymoon phase with BirdsUp right now, and it's been awesome. It's really just been great. So big shout out, big thank you to them. If you need recruiting news, if you need any football news, basketball news, baseball news, it's all at alamoaudible.com, which is a really fantastic realization of a vision that Jared and I have dreamt about for many, many years and have worked at. And so it's pretty incredible. But yeah, I mean, whenever we say one-stop shop, we really mean that. You can go to alamoaudible.com and get anything that you need from UTSA athletics.
Yeah, and of course, we just could not make a move like this without the dedicated support of all of our Patreon subscribers. I know we harp on that all the time, but it really is true, right? That, we could have the funds available to make sure Javi and his staff are compensated for their work, and that they can continue to bring coverage, and have a little something to travel to games with, and pay for their tickets and all that stuff. So I want to say thanks to some new subscribers and some upgrades as well. I think I actually missed some of the upgrades. We'll have to get some of them in the next episode. But for our new subscribers, shout out to Ronald, Bryn Rube, Oscar, Michael Garcia, and Peyton. All join us at the Insider tier. And at the Booster tier, we've got Cade, BirdsUp, Crystal Smith, and Frank R. So I know there's a lot more people that are still in their free month. And so hopefully those people will stick with us and become paid subscribers. So great to see the growth there, especially throughout the offseason. We typically don't see like a surge in new subscribers until like it's kickoff. End of August, beginning of September. So to see that this early on is really great. So thank you guys all for your support.
Yes, indeed. Big shout out. Big shout out.
Well, Adrian, there's no tradition that says fall camp has really begun quite like the release of the single digit numbers for the UTSA football roster. And here we are.
Yes, indeed. Hot off the press. Earlier this week, in fact, we did finally get the highly anticipated single digit announcement, which it came by way of social media, Jared. I'm actually quite surprised that there has not been an actual article written about it on GoUTSA.com. I feel like usually one coincides with the announcement, but we have not seen that. Nevertheless, there's been quite the buzz about it on the social medias. A few pretty good talking points here. I think a lot of the returners from last year that we expected to be the leaders of this team did end up get those single digits, but there were also quite a few surprises here for the single digit. And then still, even on top of that, some unknowns. So Jeff Traylor coming out in post-practice media days and saying that they left some single digit spots open because guys are still fighting to earn them. And so this is the first time this has ever happened. Typically, we have the entire slate of single digits announced in one single unveiling, if you will. But this time, we still have a couple of TBD, to be determined slots, particularly 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
That's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. 1, 4, 1, 5, 2, 6s, 7, and 8. There's 6. I think there's 6 available. So guys are still duking it out. There's a lot of competition in fall camp. I don't know. Do we take this as a good sign or a bad sign that no one separated themselves, or is the competition that fierce and guys are just that good? What is it? How do you read it?
It's safe to say that one of those numbers is going to go to whoever wins the place kicking job.
Okay.
Historically, the starting place kicker has pretty much always been a single digit, at least like in the preseason, right? Sometimes like someone's emerged later on. But that's my guess, that either I think Jafar Murphy is the new transfer, or Michael Petro. I think one of those guys you'll see end up in 5 maybe. Well, Dishman's 5 on the offense, so maybe 6 or 7, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, both 6s are still available.
Yeah.
5 is available on defense, 4 is available on offense. Both 6s still available. Yeah.
But Adrian, I don't know how many spots are actually open though, because I think they reserve numbers for the offensive linemen that get picked.
Because the offensive lineman cannot wear a single digit as per NCAA, so right? So
there may actually only be 1 or 2 spots open.
But, right, and so this is the sort of clarification that we would have with an article on GoUTSA.com that told us specifically who was awarded the single digits, because typically we have that available, and we're able to specify who on the line was bestowed that honor, even though they cannot actually wear the single digit. But yes, good point. But by our count, there's 6 single digits available, but it could potentially be less if there are some offensive linemen.
Yeah, and I'll just say overall, I really like the idea of like not handing these things out like candy. I did have some concerns going into last season that I'm not inside the locker room, obviously, but what I observe from afar and what I hear from people, I felt like there were some stretches last year where I was like, is this guy like really like a leader? Is this guy really like commanding presence in the huddle, in the locker room,
Sure.
And I mean, I think that probably was a fair assumption if we look at some of the statements that have been made since then. If you think back to the media day interviews, some of those interviews were very interesting with what some of the guys revealed. I think it was Willie McCoy said that there were a lot of players in the offense that were like stat chasing last year. I was like, that's a horrible accusation, right?
Crazy.
Ben Rios made some comments like, everyone wasn't on the same page and there were chemistry issues and stuff like that. So a lot of like really interesting comments that pointed to potentially a lot of culture problems, probably early in the year. And it makes me wonder if like, because they voted on those single digits like right when fall camp started. So it just makes you wonder, was there too much like anointment going on of like, this guy's been here for 2 years, so he's going to naturally get a single digit, even though he may not be the best exemplary leader by example. I don't know. It's an interesting question. And based off what we've seen these past 2 weeks, I think there's something to it.
And does that point to early season mishaps on the front half of the 2024 season? Does that contribute to getting blown out by Texas State in the worst loss in program history? Ooh. Does that contribute to the worst what's the opposite of a comeback whenever you give up, when you're giving up a lead against Tulsa? A collapse. Thank you, Jared. Yeah. A collapse. Still rusty. The Tulsa collapse, does some of that locker room friction contribute to that? You have to think so. It's a very interesting point. And, we've talked about this on the show before, the loyalty versus liability.
Ooh. Forgot about that one.
Yeah. That whole thing that goes on with Jeff Traylor. So I don't know. Maybe we're starting to work through some of that stuff. I do appreciate the guys being upfront about it and being able to hash those things out, because if they're able to talk about it in front of media, clearly they've had those conversations amongst themselves in the locker room, and that's a culture issue that they're aware of and they're fixing.
Yeah, it's a slight detour too. It was interesting too to see a lot of the guys say that, like, when Traylor and the staff implemented a more draconian approach to discipline in this offseason, that at first there were people that were like complaining and they were against it. They were like, this isn't fair. But it sounds like now, based off what the guys have been willing to share in the media, like everyone's bought in and they understand that just as off the field as on the field, because you saw it in the games last year, that one guy messing up and repeatedly having the same penalty of like sticking their hand in someone's face mask when pass rushing for 15-yard first down over and over and over again is a single person's mistake, but it prolongs a drive, creates a touchdown, and everyone suffers for it. So when one person is late to weights and everybody has to run, that's what's going to happen to the game too, when they make a mental selfish mistake, right? So
absolutely.
Just another thing that's like a general fall camp observation, media day observation, but it kind of ties into what you mentioned. So just want to call that out.
Jeff Traylor getting a little more militant, getting a little more old school with him. I think it's necessary. I think, us being such a heavily penalized team, one of the worst penalized teams in the country last season, you just saw the lack of discipline really show itself week in and week out, unfortunately. And it's something that had to be addressed, and it had to start at the top. And too many times in post-game interviews or media day availabilities, it was sort of swept under the rug as not that big of a deal. But it was a tremendously big issue on this team. And that sort of thing is contagious, right? And maybe it's the same guy committing the penalties over and over. But then whenever that drive does result in giving up a touchdown, now guys start to weigh down on themselves a little bit. They start to check out a little bit more. Maybe they're not firing as hard. And so, that sort of thing could be cancerous. It could be contagious. And so I love it, for one. I think I'm always going to sort of gravitate towards that old-fashioned coaching style. Just enough, right? There's got to be enough of it to keep discipline in order, right? Yep. You can't just be a player's coach that everything is all good all the time. There's got to be a sweet spot, even in today's day and age of transfer portal and NIL, and the player has more power than ever, and they can walk if they want to. But you either get with it or get out. And I think Traylor's made that message clear during this fall camp. And like you said, Jared, it looks like guys have really gotten on board with it. And now, it's one for all instead of all for one. And I think guys are starting to figure that out. Yeah.
I'm gonna pull us back on track in a little bit, but I think this is an important topic. I think we should run with it for a little bit. One thing that I think makes Jeff Traylor such a great coach is he is willing to admit a mistake and learn from it, even though he is so accomplished, he's so experienced, he's been around this game for so long. It has been awesome to see him say, I was too soft on these guys last year, right? I was scared to lose guys to the portal. It caused issues on the team. It led to discipline problems. And you could argue it wasn't that bad of a year, right? 7-6, win a bowl game, young team, rebuild year.
Yeah.
But the standard is so high. And I think that's what makes Jeff really special, is he understands that every group is different. He can't, and he'll make reference to his Gilmer days, right? Of like how he had to adjust to different groups of guys and different skill sets and all that. And that's just something I really appreciate about him. And, so many of these college coaches, they have such a big ego. They're so arrogant. It's their way or the highway. They'll, just drive kids out if they're not on board with it. I give Coach Traylor a lot of credit for his cognizant ability to recognize missteps and learn from them and make the program better. And if UTSA has as good of a year this year as I think they're going to have, I think that introspection is going to be a big reason why from the head man.
And maybe one of the best intangibles of him as a coach, right? One of his best coaching attributes, albeit an intangible one, his ability to zoom out and make adjustments. And we've seen him be able to do that year over year, whether it's putting guys in the right place, whether it's reevaluating who's doing what on his staff, or now changing his approach to practice, to training, to discipline, to culture. And so you have to admire that. The ego part of it, Jared, it's just, you don't see very many coaches able to adjust their ways, change how they're doing things. Jeff Traylor has shown time and time again that he is able to, and maybe he can't quite get a grasp on it in the middle of the season because he's so, focused on the end goal or what he thinks is more important pillars, like you say. Like he admitted to losing guys to the transfer portal, didn't want to do that. We were soft. Now and throughout an entire offseason, when he reevaluates, he's able to sort of have that realization. And look, he's done a great job of having a good culture here and of keeping guys at UTSA. And I think it's because players admire him, they respect him, and they love the culture. And there's a big trust that comes from your roster to have that in their head coach. So yeah, kudos. That was very well said, Jared. Kudos to Jeff Traylor for yet again being able to adjust as he progresses in his career here at UTSA. And another reason why we're fortunate to have him. And yeah, I'm very excited on what he's going to turn this team into this year. And it starts with the single digit guys. It starts with the leaders. So,
well, in true Alamo Audible fashion, we're 18 minutes into the recording, and we have not gotten into a single digit yet. So let's get into it. But before we get into the actual numbers, I think we should start with the offensive linemen so we don't forget them.
Okay.
Corey Godinet and Jalen Garth both selected into single digit numbers.
Yeah.
No surprise with Godinet, right? He was so solid last year. He's so mature, so disciplined. He's like 30 years old, so that helps. His story's so crazy. I was a little bit surprised to see Jalen Garth get it. He's been around the program for a little bit now. But, I thought Kumar Missouri was the guy that was going to get the single digit at the tackle position.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to see. We'll see how that develops, I guess. But, he seems like a pretty vocal leader. So I was a little bit surprised to see him not get the nod.
Yeah, I think that was a big surprise for a lot of people was Kumar Missouri. I mean, I think that's been probably the talking point that I've seen a lot of is Kumar Missouri missing out on that.
Yeah.
You look at a guy like Godinet, I mean, he was honorable mention all conference in 2023 and 2024. It just makes sense that he's followed this natural progression to now being a leader here at the position. Jalen Garth, man, I think he just continues to get better as well every single year. I mean, he was limited in his time at U of H, but he was extremely involved last season for UTSA. He played
Yeah,
in every game.
I
He started
honestly
9.
forgot how much he played last year. Like I was looking at his PFF because I'm working on our offensive line preview right now, and I'm like, oh my god! Like I thought he was hurt most of the year, but no, he started like 7 games and played I think in 11.
He played in all 13, started in 9 last
Wow.
year.
Yeah.
He was extremely involved.
Hmm.
Um, and you look at a guy like Kamar Missouri who started all 13 games and was really, really good. Only had 3 penalties called on him all throughout the year. We were just griping about how penalized we were. Not on Kamar Missouri.
Hmm.
Um, I think it goes to show that offseason progression because clearly Jalen Garth, I think maybe he didn't separate himself during the season, but during this offseason, he must have really shown that separation, whether it was during the spring or during the fall camp, whether it's in the weight rooms, maybe it's his vocal ability, right? And I think those single digit guys have a mix of what they're doing physically, also what
Hmm.
they're doing vocally.
Sure.
Maybe that could have played into it, but I think
Sure.
the separation from Garth to Kamar had to have happened over the offseason for the coaching staff and for Jeff Traylor.
Yep. And obviously, like what we see from outside the program can be different than what goes on inside the walls of race, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just
Mm-hmm.
important to mention.
Yeah.
Um, if we get into the 2-1-0s on offense, no surprise, Owen McCowan back in number 2, going to lead this offense. It's his team now, right? That's been one thing that's been very clear throughout all the interview sessions and all of that he has full command. Everyone's looking up to him. It's his show. That's how it should be. It's great to see.
How dare us, Jared? How dare us give Owen McCowan a single digit after the scandal he was involved in the
Oh,
offseason?
brother.
Get out of here. Get out of here. There's no blood on Owen McCowan's hands. He's a freaking bystander. You know what I'm saying? Look, the guy's a stud. I saw some people curious as to why he didn't take number 0. He already had the number 2.
Sure, run it back. Yeah.
Run it back. That's your number now. He's carving out his own legacy with that number 2
Right.
QB,
Right.
right? The legacy of 0 is with Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Let him keep it. UTSA's very first bowl win in program history. Oh, McCown, dude. And
Oh,
so
man. At some point, we're going to have a season where the starting quarterback is not going to be a 2-0, and it's not going to be a single-digit guy. It's going to happen at some point. That's when we're going to know we're in trouble. And I guarantee you, we're going to be on this podcast 6 years from now, and we're going to try to spin it. No, bro. This guy, he's a transfer. He's coming in, but he's so talented. He's going to win the team's respect. He's wearing number 14. Don't worry. Oh. But hey, let's
my
keep it moving,
gosh.
man. Devin McEwen at number 1.
Yes.
No surprise there. I mean, just rock solid, great guy. Very selfless. Fought through injury last year. Mature for his age. What else is there to say?
Devin McEwen, man, now entering his upperclassman years
Yeah.
now, coming into his junior year. And so we're really excited to see him continue to grow and continue to blossom. Extremely involved. He caught the most balls out of any receiver or tight end for that matter for UTSA last year. He was the most frequented target. Mr. Consistency, Mr. Reliable, Devin McEwen. Fantastic. Yep. Yeah.
To wrap us up on the 2-1-0 is maybe the biggest surprise overall for 2-1-0 numbers. I don't know. We can check on that when we get to the defensive side. Houston Thomas at the tight end position, getting the number 0.
Let's go.
And Adrian pointed this out, I think before we started recording. He quietly was 3rd on the team in catches at the tight end position.
Yeah. He was 3rd in the team in receiving yards, 470 receiving yards on the year for Houston Thomas, an average of 13.8 yards per catch.
Wow.
This guy played in all 13 games, and he was a big target. He was extremely consistent. You saw him all over the place last year, and so just really, really impressive to see Houston Thomas sort of climb that ladder. I mean, we saw the budding potential, but I wouldn't necessarily call it like a breakout year that he had. I mean, he just sort of showed that he can be really, really great. And so now him getting the 0 I think now you're going to see a Houston Thomas breakout year. And if last year was 470 yards, nearly 14 yards per catch, what's he going to do now in his breakout year, right? So yeah, big things on the horizon for Houston Thomas, man.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump out of order here, but I think it makes sense. To
Yes.
me, one of the craziest things about this triangle of toughness for UTSA, three tight ends voted into single digits this year. Next to Houston Thomas, he's joined by Dan Dishman, number 5, who I think is like a 6-year senior this year. And then also the young guy, Patrick Overmeyer, gets voted in as well. You know, he had a really nice redshirt freshman season for UTSA. Can we call that a breakout season for him? I think so, because he's younger. I think the
Totally.
expectations were lower.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Look, Patrick Overmeyer was an absolute stud. And whenever he first arrived on campus, this was a guy that we were kind of raving about
Mm-hmm.
on like the National Signing Day
Mm-hmm.
2022 episode or whatever. Because he was like this multi-sport athlete, two-way guy, played quarterback in high school.
Yep.
And yeah, dude, like he's just he's an unbelievable specimen. He's built extremely well, right? Really wide, 6'5", broad, tough guy. But he was a first team freshman All-American by the Athletic. And so it just speaks volumes to what he's capable of doing. He played in all 13 games last year. His 283 yards were also top, number 6 in receiving yards total. And Patrick Overmeyer, dude, I have so much like excitement for what he's going to do for the rest of his career at UTSA. But yeah, I think it's fair to say last year was a breakout year for him. The first year that he actually really got on the turf for us. And this year, man, I expect him to be a very consistent target. And also one of those lunch pail guys who's going to do some dirty work for you. All right, because he's got the stature to do so.
All right. Well, we'll round it out on offense with just 2 other guys left. A very tight and heavy group. Robert Henry and David Amador rocking
Yeah.
3 and 8 respectively.
Yes,
I
sir.
think 2 guys that were total locks, you know, going into the voting. You know, Henry has been in a single digit before. Even though Amador wasn't, I don't think there was any doubt he was going to get one. And for some reason, that number 8 just looks so natural on him compared to going number 18. It's like in my mind, I always knew who was going to end up as a single digit. So like, I think I was just shaving that one off of his jersey in my mind, you know, in the past season. But yeah, big things coming for both those guys for sure.
Absolutely, man. Robert Henry, I think, is definitely going to be the main guy coming out the backfield. And dude, David Amador, you just cannot say enough about that guy. He's an absolute stud. Gosh, I'm so excited to see what he's going to do this next season, fully healthy with the full slate in front of him, to really get things fired off here. Man, David Amador, dude. Yeah, I'm so excited to see what him and Owen McGowan's connection is really going to flourish into in 2025. They've got the mojo. Those two, you know, they've got that magic connection between them
for sure. All right, well, let's jump over to the defense. Starting with a 2-1-0, we got Owen Pee-wee, outside linebacker. They sent him to media day. I think he's a guy that's really grown into himself while at UTSA. You know, stepped into a leadership role, and there's a lot on his shoulder, I would say. I don't know if he's the most important player in the defense, but he's definitely top 3.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And you know, I mean, he kind of was really sort of earning his way up into a more consistent spot on the roster last year. And then, you know, you have this graduation, this sort of changing of guard that's happening at the linebacker position. And so, you know, he's thrusted into a lot of responsibility this year. I think you're spot on with that. I mean, he's very critical in determining the success of that group and of the defense overall.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we got Ty Leonard at the number 1. Love to see a defensive lineman rocking a single digit. You know,
yes, sir.
You know, but Ty's like pretty slender for a defensive lineman. There's just something funny about the 315-pound guy rocking number 1. But great to see the defensive line continue to be represented here. And I think he's got like a big legacy to follow, right? That unit has been so strong for UTSA historically. Leonard's the guy that has like the most experience in the program. North Shore connection, right? So he's got deep relationships with Coach Price and the many guys from that kind of east side of Houston. And he's been a good player for UTSA all along. Excited to see him take the next step into that starting role. And another guy I think is going to do big things. And we've seen him be a leader in the past already. I thought he might get a single digit last year, right? So good to see him step into that role. And I think he'll be the clear leader on a group that's probably going to surprise a lot of people with how much stuff they have.
He's another one of those guys that's kind of been progressing year over year, earning his keep, earning his way up. I mean, he was an all freshman CUSA player whenever he first got here in 2022. And I think a lot of people forget that. And I don't know if he had a couple of tweaks, over the last couple of seasons. He was a little bit limited last year, but Ty Leonard, he's really been just getting better, I think, every single year. And he's unbelievably talented at the position. Another North Shore name on there, which you love to see. There's actually 3 North Shore names in the single digit.
Man.
Everyone's making a big deal. Everyone's making a big deal about 3 tight ends. How about 3 of them East Side boys from North Shore? Come on. I mean, I think that might even be a bigger selling point than the 3 tight ends.
Man.
We got 3 North Shore boys on here. Number 0 at the inside linebacker, another linebacker, is Shad Banks Jr., transfer from TCU. This is electric with Shad Banks. I think he's really going to be a money maker for this defense.
Yeah, I think we've said it on several podcasts, like both the recruiting recaps and also some of the season preview guest appearances that we've gone on throughout this offseason. It's like, for this defense to be good, Shad Banks has to live up to the hype. And I think we've just continually said, how high his ceiling is, the level of experience at this level or a higher level of play really he has that he brings in to the system. His athleticism, that North Shore connection, again, I think is important. And I think that's a big reason why he got voted into the 210 Triangle of Toughness, despite being a transfer. It's just like all those connections that he has across this roster and across this community. So it was just a huge sign of encouragement to see him voted into that number. It seemed like things were going that way. I mean, literally from like the first day of camp, Shad Banks is best player of the defense. was like kind of like the narrative that was coming around. Good to see that so far he's living up to those expectations, because that linebacker position is going to need someone to really step up as the alpha, right? And to, relay the calls in, make those adjustments, know when to lay off a blitz, know when to green dog and send it. And it seems like he has that football IQ, that intelligence, and just the speed, right, to play at a fast pace, right, and react quickly. It's not always been the case for UTSA, right? Sometimes it's kind of seemed like they're very reactionary, maybe like a step behind if the offense did something they didn't expect them to. So I'm hoping we see that presence from Banks on the field this year. But I think it's just awesome to see his seniority earn the respect from a fresh defense.
The senior laden experience, right? A guy who played all season long, mind you. This wasn't a guy that was just riding the bench for a national champion runner-up TCU in 2022. The vocal presence, the experience, all of that, Jared, it's so critical for this unit that is kind of reconfiguring itself, the UTSA linebackers. And so, Shad Banks should be the anchor to kind of really glue this thing together for these guys.
Yep, for sure. We'll keep it moving. A guy that may be a surprise, I don't know. Davin Martin comes in at number 3. We saw some really good things from him in his redshirt freshman season last year. I thought that he would have a chance to start, just given like the lack of depth at that position. Once they got that transfer in that ended up at Michigan State, I've already forgot his name. Anthony Panache.
My gosh. Yeah, Panache. Yeah.
What a strange era. But I thought Martin might get left out in the starting rotation after that. But then once he transferred out, I think it opened a window for, David to just step up into a big role and, redshirt sophomore, ready to start. He's got the tools for it, and I think he's got great coaching behind him. So great sign to see him voted in, and I think we'll have a good season.
Surprise for sure. I think this might be one of the biggest surprises on the single digit. I mean, and he didn't get he didn't see a whole lot of field last season. But a guy just sort of worked his way up and I think earned the respect of his peers, earned the respect of his coaches. Clearly a workhorse. Like you said, Jared, there's still single digit numbers to give out. So it's not like we were just handing him out like candy trying to get all those spots filled. Everyone that's got one has really, really earned it. So I was very much surprised by this, and I'm excited to see what Davin Martin's going to do this season in that single digit.
Yeah, I meant to bring that up earlier, just kind of like the math of getting a single digit this year. Like, if they're not filling all the spots, like, what percentage of the team has to vote for you to get in? Is it 20%, 25%?
Interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just something to think about, because, like, if they didn't honor that last year, there might have been some guys that got a really low percentage of votes that got a nod.
Right.
Something to consider.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we only got a few guys left. At number 4, Cameron Cooper, a guy that's had an interesting career at UTSA, I would say. He's kind of been moved all over from inside linebacker, tight end, now that outside linebacker kind of edge position. I really liked what I saw from last year. He didn't, just like Davin Martin, he didn't play a lot, but you could see those extreme flashes of athleticism when he was on the field. And there was a lot of discussion of, like, Vic Shaw or Cameron Cooper, who's going to stand out. We might have our answer now. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was really just a special teams guy, kind of mostly, like a special teams specialist. He was even returning kickoffs at one point a couple years ago, and so see him sort of blossom. Yeah, this is another surprise on here, and shout out to Dayton, Texas, with the Cameron Cooper mention. Yeah, this is very exciting. But another one that catches you by surprise, linebackers have a lot of presence here on the single digit list. And so for a unit, like I said, it's reconfiguring itself, clearly making a lot of noise in camp and in the offseason, and garnering respect among their peers, among the staff. What do we got? 1, 2, 3. Is it 3 or is it 4?
I think 4, right?
4 linebackers? 4 linebackers here?
Pee-wee, Banks, Cooper, and then the guy we're going to talk about next. 4.
Who is that guy?
Well, if we're going to go numerical order, we'll skip someone. Before we get to the last linebacker, we got Jimmy Wyrick coming in at number 7, the only safety on the list. I wasn't too surprised to see him make it, even though he didn't play a lot last year, because he got hurt really early. Like, he was very much in the mix early in the season. And I thought he looked pretty good. He had some plays that, he was laying off for balls and getting a finger on them. Seemed to have good positioning pretty often. It just seems like a really sharp dude, right? He already graduated from Stanford. It's like super young. Like,
that's incredible.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
So I think if he's healthy, he's going to be, a real standout player for UTSA. But, he had injury problems at Stanford as well. So I think we'll just have to see how he holds up. And I think his maturity really shines through, and I think played a big part in getting selected into the Triangle.
I'm really glad to see a secondary guy on there. I'm really glad to see a safety.
I would like to see more. I'll say it.
Yeah. So I mean, look, it's another one of those positions I think we had some question marks at. Jimmy Wyrick going to fill that void with a lot of experience, a lot of smarts. And he had already earned his way into starting before he got injured last season. So I mean, I think the potential was definitely there already. And so I hope to see him fully healthy and get a full slate this year.
Yep. And then to wrap it up, number 9, Kendrick Blackshire was on the roster for UTSA last year, but, same as Wyrick, didn't see a whole lot of action, was dealing with injury pretty often.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's really transformed his body. I mean, he came in at 250, which is like outrageously big for a linebacker. And I think he said he's down to 225 now. I don't know if he wants to bump that up a little bit, but great transition, right? He was definitely overbulked, right? And I think that's why he hadn't seen the field a whole lot. Both going back to his time at Texas and Alabama and here now as well. So, the reports have been promising from him coming out of camp. With him being down to his lower weight, you hope he can fly around a little bit better. And, I don't know if he's going to beat out Brandon Tucker for that other linebacker position next to Shad Banks, but even if he doesn't, feeling a heck of a lot better about the depth at that interior linebacker position now that Kendrick Blackshire's got voted in here.
Yeah, this is another one of those, the talent potential is off the charts, right? You talk about the P5 transfers that UTSA start to accumulate. A guy that was at Alabama, a guy that was at UT, a guy that was a consensus 4-star coming out of high school. I think he was top 10 linebacker when he was coming out of high school, top 10 in Texas, that is. And so he didn't quite see the field as much as he probably would have liked to in his time at P5. And so I don't think he's had really the opportunity to have a full season to really just shine. And I think he's going to have that this season here at UTSA. His body's right. He's healthy. And at this level, at the AAC level, he could really be a force of nature, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it, folks. That's your Triangle of Toughness for now. We'll see if anyone else sneaks in. Like I said, I think it'll be a kicker. I think it'll be a special teams player. But I would love to see another safety, another cornerback sneak their way in. We'll see what the future holds.
So there were 2 offensive linemen. So I think there are 4 single-digit spots available by our podcast math. And neither of us were math majors at UTSA.
No, we're not. We're not.
According to podcast math, there's 4 single digits to hand out.
Well, we're going to take a Cumbia break, and we'll come back and talk about the schedule for UTSA a little bit. It's so hard to do preseason previews for our own program, much less others. But we'll talk about some high-level storylines and players to watch and all that. But before we do, I want to give a shout-out, as always, to our Board of Trustees members over on Patreon. These are our greatest supporters that keep us rolling, keep us fueled up and motivated to keep you pumping out this great content for you guys. Want to give a big thank you to Digiteek, John Otwell, Gary and Ruben represent the UTSA Burger Tailgate, Ray Redding, Andy Elizade at Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and Seeker LLC, Javan Townsend, president of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Waterman Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, Brandon Patron, and Runners United, www.goutsa.co. All right, we're back from the first Cumbia break of the season. You got to get those hips loose for tailgating season. Some WD-40 of those rusty old hips as they come out of the off season.
In case we do any parking lot bird cage drills, maybe you got to have those hips lubed up, son. Shout out the real ones know about that.
Yeah, that's an OG reference right there. All right, well, we ran pretty long on the single-digit players. We'll try to get through this schedule preview pretty quickly. And like I said before the jump, it is just every year it gets harder to do these preseason previews. 40 new players on every roster, transfers coming from all levels of play. You never really know who's in and who's out. Guys pop up on rosters out of nowhere. It's tough, right? So we're going to try to keep it really high level. We'll talk about the schedule as a whole. And maybe just an interesting storyline or two for a couple of these teams. And, great start of the season for the Roadrunners. They travel to Kyle Field to face a Texas A&M team that some people are calling a dark horse contender for the playoffs. And
wow,
it's a stretch, I think, but you can talk yourself into it. I can see that.
And it was very good under Mike Elko's very first season at the helm. I think it was their best finish in 4 years with 8 wins. This is going to be on a 4-letter network, the flagship ESPN. It's a 6 p.m. evening kickoff in Kyle Field on the last Saturday of August 30th. And so for those of you that are making the trek out to College Station, you're talking about an all-day tailgate, 6 p.m. kickoff. That's always fantastic. I made my pilgrimage the first time that we played A&M. I'm a one and done at Kyle Field. Don't really have any interest in going back. I'd rather make my journeys to the Alamo Dome for those games instead. Jared, you have not made it to Kyle Field for a UTSA football game yet. Is this on your travel agenda?
It's not, sir. Yeah, sorry.
How do they
I
get
spent a
going
lot
about
of
it?
time in College Station when I was in college because I'm from South Texas, and it's like if you don't go to A&M, you're going to Blinn. It's like which side of the county is your apartment on? And I got my fair share of the exposure to that, and I'm good, man. I know the traditions; they're cool. I don't need to see them in person.
Gosh, man. Oh, man. Yeah, I've got the buddies from high school that did like 3 semesters at Blinn and are die-hard Aggie fans.
Right.
Swear that they got their ring dunk done from there. Like,
Yeah.
it's the best, though. And I respect them. I
Sure.
love those guys.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have like Northwest Vista students that are so bought into UTSA football that they do that.
Oh, brother, there's a universe
Could
where
you
that
imagine,
exists,
man?
man. We have the whole sack decked out in blue and
Yes,
orange,
dude.
dog. We got
Yes. Like
Northwest
that's
East.
the dream. That's the goal. We'll see if it ever gets there.
Let's go.
But I think like just the super high storyline. Like you're right. I mean, I thought they look great visually under Elko. They look like a more cohesive team. That defense is going to be really strong, really fast. They probably already are. But the quarterback position, I don't know. I mean, they kind of made Marcel Reed this for sure starter like super early in the offseason, which I thought was kind of interesting because there's a lot of questions about his throwing ability. And he's a great athlete. He's going to hurt UTSA in a lot of ways for sure. But if we're going to get A&M on the schedule, I would prefer it to be game one when there's still a lot of questions about their passing game. And,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
UTSA secondary is going to be the weak point, I think, for this defense. Tough
Reed is
opponent, tough draw, but this is the best possible spot to get them in, I think.
Definitely a run first quarterback at this point in his career. Texas A&M preseason ranked 19. So that's always exciting for UTSA to get a ranked opponent
Yep,
to
still
open the season
chasing.
with, to be on ESPN on opening Saturday of the college football season. That is a huge deal for us to be on the flagship on opening week when every single TV in America will be tuned in to ESPN to watch every single college football game for opening Saturday. UTSA to be on that slate, I think, is fantastic exposure wise. I don't think that's being talked about enough.
Sure.
And then there's the personal vendetta with Jeff Traylor and what some would say his dream destination in College Station, right? And
Oh, I
going
haven't
up
thought about
against
that
the
angle.
Aggies, and I think that's another fun storyline for people to play around with.
Okay.
Allegedly took an interview for the coaching position last season, allegedly.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah. I
I'll
think
grant you that one.
I'd like to see UTSA keep this one competitive and to what is it? Give the respect the pecker. I think was once upon a time a rallying cry here. Yeah, on national television on opening college football Saturday, it's a 21.5-point spread. Can UTSA keep it within 3 touchdowns? Let's see it happen, baby.
Like it. All right. Well, hopefully UTSA makes some noise. They get some hype going. Win or lose, I think they've got a good chance of doing that, and getting people excited about this Roadrunner team because they're going to have another big test next week. UTSA is coming off first ever loss to the hated rival Texas State Bobcats, but they will get a good chance at revenge back home in the Alamodome, where the Roadrunners have had the Bobcats number. Saturday, September 6th, pack the Alamodome for the battle for I-35.
I guess we can still run with that. We're still undefeated in the Alamodome against Texas State, even though we're not undefeated overall. Oh my gosh. Gosh, man, it just haunts me. That loss haunts me. 49-10 last year against Texas State, dude.
Whooping.
GJ Kinney's Bobcats. It was a good old fashioned ass whooping, and I know it is fresh on the minds of a lot of UTSA Roadrunners in that locker room. Jeff Traylor's always played down the circling games on the schedule. We think about the past matchups against UNT, whatever that rivalry was really firing on all cylinders. There's no lying about this one, and I think we got to come out and own it. We want to beat the hell out of Texas State. This one is circled, it's stamped, it's highlighted, it's starred. There needs to be blood. We've got to redeem it, man. It was just a terrible loss last year. And then there's so many moving parts. people want to talk about Texas State moving to the Pac-12 next season, and they got their first win over UTSA. Can they get another one over UTSA? If they beat UTSA again with the move to the Pac-12, how much more competitive, what kind of edge does that give them over recruiting battles, whenever it comes to head-to-head matchups, trying to get guys to land at your university? This has been a fantastic rivalry, Jared. We like to think that UTSA has completely owned Texas State throughout the years, and that might be the case in the win column. But if you actually look at the scoreboard, every single game was a one-possession game, even going back to 2012, minus the one blowout that we had in our inaugural trip to San Marcos 2017, Marcus Davenport game. And then, of course, last year's mollywhopping in Texas State, which was actually only the second time that we went to San Marcos and played them on the gridiron. So it's back in the Alamo Dome. We expect there to be a tremendous crowd, a great attendance there. I think last time Texas State was here in the Alamo Dome, we got really close to that attendance number, breaking through the 50,000 threshold. Maybe we did surpass 50,000 the last time that they were here.
49 sounds about right to me.
49? Yeah,
I think so.
We were close to it. So, yeah, I think people are really excited. Whenever the Bobcats come to town, we get an electric crowd in the Alamo Dome, man. So looking forward to that again. It's a great way for your home opener to start that with a big regional rivalry game against Texas State and to get vengeance. It has to happen. Jeff Traylor's got to have this one be marked as personal. It's personal. It has to be.
Yeah. Well, after two really intense, high-profile, high-stakes games like that, you would like to take the foot off the gas a little bit and have a little tune-up game against an FCS program. Well, UTSA might have that on paper, but I don't think they're going to have that on the gridiron because they're facing an incarnate word program that has continued to compete at the highest level of the FCS, has made deep FCS playoff runs year after year, that have developed athletes that have gone on to be first-round NFL draft picks.
It's crazy.
This is not your mother's UIW athletics program.
This is not the UIW
recruit starting a quarterback against the Roadrunners.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is not the UIW that called out UTSA in a YouTube video.
Yeah, what was Roadrunners are fast, but Cardinals can soar, Cardinals can fly, or something like that. Yeah,
it is the case nowadays. You expect UTSA to still hold their own, but I mean, look, since the days of Eric Morris and then GJ Kinney and now Clint Kilough,
Like Kilough, I think.
Ouugh, yeah. Wow, man, it's just an unbelievable ascension, and Clint himself has a ridiculous record. He's entering his third season. Yeah, his third season. He's 20-5 overall. They were undefeated in Southland Conference last year, 11-3 overall last year. Dude, yeah, it's just really incredible what a powerhouse UIW has turned into. And it's not a game that you can lay off of whatsoever.
No, do not expect the reserves to be in the third quarter. I don't think it's gonna be one of those games. If you get there by the end of the fourth, that's great. I think that's the hope. But they're a tough program. You got to respect them. And you got to be on your toes, man. Be ready to rock.
Definitely so,
now,
man.
Adrian, for the next game, runners will travel to Colorado State and Fort Collins, Colorado. And I got two words for you on this one. Trap game.
Oh, man. Dude, Colorado State is quietly gotten better and better and better over the last couple of years. Underneath, is it Jay Norvell?
Jay Norvell. Yep.
Yeah, man. They're starting to get back to being competitive week in and week out, and some people are even slating them as a dark horse, maybe not, maybe more than a dark horse.
Yeah.
For a push to a Mountain West title game.
Yeah,
I think it's fair.
I could see it, and they went 8-5 last year. I just don't think a lot of people are giving them their just due for that. They've got a great quarterback. I'm going to butcher his name. Fowler. I don't know. I don't know, but he played for Lido in high school, and I remember watching his film, and I'm like, man, UTSA's got to go get this guy, man. He's a high school football star. I know Jeff Traylor's up on them, and they didn't go after him, and it just
Mm,
really hurt me. And then to see him, start for Colorado State as a freshman and just tear it up. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the group of six. He's a really, really solid player. This program recruits at a higher level than I think a lot of people realize. So
absolutely.
I think a lot of people see historically that Colorado State's not been that great, like in the past, decade or whatever. But
Yeah.
they've never been terrible. They've kind of just always hung around, and they've probably underachieved. But I think they've got the pieces and the coaching there to quickly ramp it up. So, I saw Jeff Traylor say that he thinks this is the toughest out of conference slate that UTSA has ever played. He might be on something.
I think you said that last year too.
Yeah.
The scary thing about this game, Jared, and Colorado State, another one of those teams that is going to the new Pac-12. The scariest thing about this game, Jared, is Colorado's coming off of a bye week when they go to UTSA. UTSA, or when UTSA goes to Fort Collins, UTSA will have played Texas A&M, Texas State, and then UIW. And then they got to get on that plane ride up to the elevation
Yep.
in Fort Collins. Only the second time we've been over there. Whereas Colorado State, nice and rested, a bye week after they have to play North Colorado at home.
Yep.
They're going to be ready to pounce, dude. Great point, Jared. Trap game indeed. You have to really go out there tough because Texas State is not going to be a gimme game. UIW is not going to be a gimme game. And it's another one of those out of conference slates where UTSA could be fighting to go 500, or they could be looking at 3-1, or dare I say, you could be coming out of it with a losing record,
Yep.
right? So yeah, it is a very tough out of conference slate, and this one is definitely a hard one to cap it off with. Yeah. A well rested Colorado State team is going to be very scary.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that after a really tough out of conference slate, UTSA gets their bye week in between out of conference play and the start of conference play, which I always like. I think it's a great reset.
Yeah.
Coach Traylor always makes like the high school analogy of like, you start district play and all that, right? So I think that, ties in nicely to his philosophy. So you get a week off to recover and, figure out, who's healthy now, right? And, because they've got some guys that we expect to be contributors that are not going to be ready to go at the start of the season. So you might add a couple impact players in that, kind of month-long span, make some adjustments to starting lineup and be ready to roll, start off conference play at Temple in Philadelphia, where Casey Keeler has made the move from Sam Houston State after having a great career and season there in Huntsville. So we'll see how quickly he's able to turn things around. There at Temple. That roster's in really bad shape. The program's in bad shape, but Keeler's a great coach. So I don't know how competitive they'll be this year, but they're going to get there at some point.
Yeah. UTSA going up to Temple again. You expect UTSA to get in there and handle business as they're supposed to. It's the following week that's concerning, Jared. We look back at the 2024 football season. Everyone gripes a lot about the Tulsa loss. Everyone gripes a lot about the Texas State loss. What is, in my opinion, one of the worst losses, if not the worst loss of 2024, and the most underrated, underappreciated loss of 2024 was the last second giveaway to the Rice Owls in Houston, Texas. The first time Rice had beaten us, since we started our win streak against them in like 2014 or something like that. Yeah, ridiculous. But it was an absolutely pitiful way to lose that game, where UTSA just beat themselves over and over again, had every single opportunity to win that game, just decided not to. And then really poor sportsmanship with a post-game brawl midfield as Jared and I stood in the Rice bleachers
in astonishment,
stunned in astonishment. It was horrendous. It was a horrendous loss. What it was arguably rock bottom of 2024. I mean, you could say the Tulsa collapse, but I don't know, man. That Rice game was really, really pitiful in a game that UTSA just had no business losing. Now Rice comes back to the Alamo Dome the week following Temple, and that's when you have to take care of business on, man.
Yep.
And maybe Rice isn't ever the best on paper, but it just doesn't sit well with me the way that it ended last year.
Yeah, I mean, UTSA should have such an athletic advantage over Rice that even with mental mistakes, it should be pretty easy to pull it off. So I expect a big win this year. They do have a new coach, Scott Abel, coming in, implementing a very unique gun option offense. So we'll see how UTSA is ready to face that for the first time. But yeah, I shouldn't be super, super concerned about this one, I don't think.
Yeah, certainly so. Let's hope not. Yeah, the end of intellectual brutality, man. Wow. Yeah, Rice finally bringing in a new head coach. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, after Rice, UTSA keeps it in state. They travel up to Denton to face North Texas in another big rivalry game. And, people are pretty high on the Mean Green this year. I think the big storyline with them is they went and hired I think Skylar Cassidy was the name of the defensive coordinator at San Francisco State. Did not follow Casey Keeler to Temple. Wanted to stay in the state of Texas. It's a big coup, I would say, for North Texas to land him. And he brought, like 10 players from Sam Houston State with him. So that should be a nice infusion of talent for them. So we'll see. I'm not completely bought in on the hype just yet, like a lot of people are, but I think that defense is going to improve, and they don't have to improve a lot if that offense stays as good for this to be a pretty salty team.
Well, they don't have to improve a lot to be better than they were last year. The Mean Green defense was very poor in 2024. They finished 128th in total defense. Pretty poor against the run and the pass. And I think it was really their defensive line that was kind of getting manhandled throughout the season last year. And so, UNT's defense is certainly going to be better than they were last season. The defense was terrible last season. But they've continued on offense to find a way. They're always seeming to put points on the board, right? Even with a lot of changes in personnel offense. Chandler Morris is gone, quarterback. They've got I think a transfer from
Miami, but I think the freshman's going to start. Yeah, I think the freshman's going to start.
Yeah. So, offensively, Mean Green is consistent. It seems year in and year out, but
they're going to find a way to put points on the board for sure.
They always do. Yeah,
I think you'll see the offense progress a little bit with the talent they lost. I think you're going to see the defense improve quite a bit. Where that levels out at in terms of overall performance, I don't know. I think there could be a middle of the pack team at worst, but it's easy to see them putting it all together for the first time in a while and hitting that upper echelon that they've been searching for a long time.
You could say, Jared, that this is kind of where the girthiness of the conference schedule really sort of sets in for UTSA. After playing Temple and Rice the first 2 weeks of conference play, now you've got to go to Denton to play UNT. You get a bye week after that, thankfully, because then you have to see Tulane. Now, fortunately enough, you're getting Tulane at home in the Alamo Dome. However, Tulane is Tulane. And,
I have them at the top of the conference still, despite the huge exodus of talent that they had. And that's for two reasons. I mean, first off is they've done great in the portal. Their NIL, their rev share is super competitive, and they're going to have a lot of players that are not like power four or moving down a level trying to get playing time. These are legit guys that played consistently in the SEC that, are just going to move to Tulane and have the same amount of playing time and just be really, really good at this level and get paid a lot of money for it. So their talent level is super high, but their coaching is incredible, right? Summerall's one of the best coaches out there. He's got a bright future ahead of him for sure. So until proven otherwise, they're the top of the conference for me. UTSA is very lucky to get them at home. It's going to be a Thursday night Halloween game. So
Oh,
hopefully the students
baby.
turn out for that. Yeah, hopefully they bring back the Nike version of the Blackbirds. We get a nice little surprise there. But it's a huge game, huge game. If UTSA is gonna try to play for conference championship, this is a must-win game, 100%.
Absolutely, Jared. Absolutely so. Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because they'll follow it up with another Thursday game, but that one on the road. They will travel to Tampa to face South Florida. And kind of an interesting team, right? In 2023, Bynum, their quarterback, burst onto the scene. Really fun player to watch. Was kind of ahead of his time as far as his age goes, and his presence on the field. He had some pretty bad injury setbacks in 2024. I think he actually ended up taking a red shirt, even though he played a little bit last year. So we'll see how healthy he is this year. I know they lose Sean Atkins, who I think ended as the program's all-time leading receiver. So, I think they're kind of similar to UTSA, like a pretty good base level of talent. They bring back a lot of guys. Like, I think their returning production is with UTSA up there, top of the conference. Road trip to the East Coast is always tough for a Texas team.
It is.
But I still like UTSA's odds on this one.
Yeah. This is another one, Jared. It's I think more of a toss-up of how good USF is really going to be. They're certainly getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Not the same USF whenever we first entered the American Conference. They could sneakily be a lot better than people are anticipating. But I think the jury is going to be out on them for a while before we really get a feel for how good USF is going to be or not. It's the first game in November, right? It's a November to remember. And UTSA tends to turn on the gas and play their best football in the final month of the regular season. And they started with a little road trip. So after South Florida, we're going to stay on the East Coast, and we're going to go up to Charlotte to play the 49ers.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect out of Charlotte this year. I really like the hire they made at head coach with Tim Albin, championship coach in the MAC at Ohio. So I think it was a really smart hire for them. I just don't know what that roster looks like, man. I've got no clue. The talent level under Biff Poggi was not great. They would get some like flashy transfers, but I didn't feel like they did a great job of holistically building out the roster. So I don't know. I mean, I think UTSA will probably be a heavy favorite here, but I'm a little bit more, I guess, bullish on the long-term outlook in Charlotte now after this head coaching hire. But I don't know if you can totally flip this thing given where they were at last year.
It's going to take a long time to build it. They're going to need a few seasons to actually load up on talent. It's really just a gutted. It's a gutted roster talent wise. It's going to be a hard first year for Albin, but I agree with you. It's a great hire, and they'll be good in the years to come. They should make themselves competitive again at the very least. But it's not going to happen this season.
Yep. Well, November 22nd, UTSA will welcome East Carolina back to the Alamodome. I believe it'll be the Pirates' second trip down to San Antonio. And I don't know. I mean, they got the best of UTSA last year. But for me, it was hard to leave that game being super impressed with anything ECU did. But similar to the Rice game, really just felt like UTSA just gave away chance after chance after chance to win it. ECU actually fired their coach after they beat UTSA, which is always embarrassing. That's like wild. There's like 3 or 4 games last year that UTSA lost their coach that got fired. That's the craziest thing. But they promoted their interim coach, Blake Harrell, and he did go on a nice run. He got them to 8-5, but the teams that he beat were not very impressive. So we'll see how things look. I mean, I think they're kind of similar to USF. I think they're going to be that upper half of the conference. I think the talent level is pretty decent, but quarterback is still a question mark for me. We'll see how things turn out. But with UTSA being at home, I think they'll be okay in this one.
Yeah, they should be okay. I agree with you, and I think it's another one. I mean, I think UTSA is very cognizant that a lot of these losses from 2024 were games that they should have won, or games that they let sort of slip from their grasp. And so there's going to be a little vendetta there, and I think they're going to right the ship. We talked about culture issues. We talked about penalty issues, discipline issues. If those things are being corrected in the sense that we're getting from the fall camp whispers and media availability, it does seem like there's going to be a much sharper Roadrunner team that's not going to allow these same mistakes to lose them games in 2025. And so I expect a full turnaround against ECU. Certainly
Well,
so.
if there's a game on the schedule where being undisciplined and having mental mistakes will cost them a victory, it's definitely going to be in the regular season finale at home against Army. This is
Oh,
the
man.
American Conference, almost at AAC. I didn't call myself. This is the American Conference flex game. So if it's looking like UTSA and Army is the best matchup, they'll play on the Black Friday on national TV. If not, it'll slip to Saturday. A lot of change for Army. They're the defending conference champion. Won 12 games last year, but they lose Bryson Daly.
Yeah.
They lose a 1,000-yard rusher at running back, and they lose their best edge rusher as well. So a lot of change there. And, I think kind of seen with Army, like their floor is not that low, but they can kind of fluctuate pretty drastically just depending on how good of a quarterback they have. And they're dropping off pretty considerably when it comes to quarterback talent this year. So,
Gosh. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very different Army roster than what we had to face. But look, man, in the 5 times UTSA has gone up against this team, they've only won once. And they just seem to
crazy.
give us fits. And
Yep.
we've never beaten them in San Antonio at that. And 3 of those 5 matchups have been in San Antonio.
I know. Some of them, I'm having mental images now of those losses, and there's just like some really ugly stuff in there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jeff Traylor is always paraded with his home record, right? Defending the dome, defending the home turf, and that home field advantage. Has not gotten one over Army. We have not been able to beat Army in the Alamo Dome. Is this the season that they can do it? And is this potentially, a game that has championship appearance play-in
could be a
potential?
play-in game. Yep.
Absolutely could be a play-in game, right? If things shake out as crazy as they typically are in the AAC, it could absolutely be a play-in game for UTSA or for Army, for that matter. And so, yeah, dude, it's a scary one to have at your regular season finale. It doesn't matter how new the roster is going to look. It's a scary team to go up against year in and year out. And so Roadrunners for, eligibility, for play-in eligibility, yeah, they might have to go through an Army team to get that, man.
Well, I mean, in conclusion, Adrian, I think it's a really tough out-of-conference schedule. Really tough. But the conference lines up pretty well, I would say. I mean, you avoid Memphis, you get Tulane at home, you get Army at home. The South Florida road trip, you at least have an extra day of rest, 2 days of rest, because it's a Thursday game to a Thursday game.
Sure.
I think it's pretty doable. I really do.
Yeah. And, I think it's okay to call it what it is. The American Athletic is not the scariest conference in college football. And so, you've got a lot of very winnable games on the schedule whenever you're a team like UTSA. You've got to take care of business against the hard hitters like a Tulane, like an Army. And then those 50-50 games are really going to determine your fate. Can you get past a UNT? Can you get past an ECU? A USF, I think, is probably going to be a bigger one than ECU this season as those kind of trade places. So, yeah, dude, it's a big one. UTSA got to get through the conference slate, or got to get through the out-of-conference slate at least with that 500 record, and set yourself up for a good run through October and November. Golly, it's already here, Jared.
That's right.
Yes. Well, that's going to be it for our schedule preview for our single-digit rundown. We very much appreciate all of those tuning in. We really appreciate our big money donors. Special shout out to Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdahl, our host of Around the Bird Bath podcast, Jacob Cavazos, board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, which, by the way, you can check out the Alumni Association podcast for Jared's appearance previewing UTSA's 2025 season. John Nally, Rick Cortez of the Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, UTSA King Bowser, Maddie, Joe Rodriguez, UTSA grad 1998, and Home Field Apparel, where you can gear up for the football season and use the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field for 15% off your first order. You can also visit the AlamoAudible.com fan shop to gear up on game day gear. Do not forget about that. And we will not forget about you guys. That will be the longest hiatus of podcasts that you will have for 2025. From here on out, get ready for week in, week out. And for Patreon subscribers, a couple of them a week, plus all of the fantastic extra coverage that you get by way of the blog posts, by way of Jared's film room breakdowns. Yes, indeed, we are getting into full stride for 2025 football, baby. Let's go.